application process. We're asking everybody to basically go through and review this presentation to understand a little bit more about completing the application and the components of it. So we'll try to go through fairly quickly the presentation. I'll leave a few minutes at the end for questions. And then there's a French version at 12:30 that we'll also be doing for those who have heard in French. First, I'll introduce myself. My name is Greg Hauser. I'm Deputy Treasurer with the city and also involved in the community grants program from an administrative side. So we've developed this information session really to help the groups who are applying to provide a good quality application. And we'll go through sort of the different streams, the different components of the application that are important and the sort of components. The intent is to have the application up online on June 17th. We will send a message out to all groups, but it is online. There's just some final IT requirements on final configuration we're finishing off here, but did want to bring this information session to those who are involved. Just so you have, we had done it last year or the year before, so it's just a refresher, let's put it that way. So let's get started on some of the key areas. So basically, I'll introduce, we'll talk about funding streams, major multi-year grants, application completion, and then we'll leave some time at the end.
You don't drink coffee.
So within the funding streams for the community grants, so keep in mind this is the grants we offer, such as heritage grants.
In anything you want, I can feed back into
other grants like that. These are the really ones that we talk about through cultural grants, immigration, quality of life, and the major multi-year. It'll be an approval by council on an annual basis based on the budget that's available. First, the cultural grants. The purpose of the grant, cultural, is to support the creation and presentation of cultural and artistic merit projects of merit. It ties back into the 2016 to 2026 cultural. On this presentation, when you receive it, there's a link to that cultural plan, so one can go and look at what those items are, what those components are, and that plan. Basically, eligibility and criteria are in there. Those basically are labeled within that. Basically the eligibility criteria and expenses are eligibility. It has to be nonprofit, charitable organization. It cannot be private education, cannot be for-profit organizations. So some of the keys, and within the cultural and the documents, we talk about eligible expenditures within the policy. On scoring for cultural grants, there's an evaluation matrix that's followed, talks about relevancy. So that's relevancy to the cultural grant plan, and also feasibility in sense how feasible it is the project feasible project. Next one is immigration grants. So the purpose is to provide funding to organizations that provide services that assist in furthering the priorities of the Greater Moncton immigration strategy. Their annual grants. It supports the policy and the strategy. There's 3 pillars: attracting talent to the community, ensuring newcomers put down roots, broadening community collaboration, and within each of those areas, within each that strategy, there's 7 main objectives that one would look for to support. Once again, similar eligibility criteria and eligible expenses. Towards that, there's more details in the actual body of the grant policy as to what's eligible expenses, eligible criteria, but really the costs are to support the development and support of the immigration strategy. The matrix, exactly the same as we have for cultural. It's the relevance is 20 points. Feasibility is 10 points, and then there's reporting at the end. We'll talk a little bit about reporting in a few minutes. The quality of life grants, the purpose of that grant is to, once again, it's on an to enhance the quality of life for Moncton residents through the funding of nonprofit groups committed to delivering community programs or projects as it relates to recreation, active living, and social inclusion. So it crosses a gamut of areas, and it sort of covers off things that may not be covered under cultural and under immigration. It ties into the Moncton Strategic Plan for 2023, being recreation, active living, social inclusion, as mentioned above. So quality of life, sample of those things in quality of life. The community grants would be, housing and affordability type. Urban agriculture, we've done things with urban agriculture. Health, and there's education and training from a nonprofit point of view. Obviously, as well, there's inclusion to diversity. Those are areas that are looked at in those quality of life community grants under $10,000, and they're single year grants that would be available. The main goals of those grants is to provide services and have a service to provide greatest benefit to the citizens of Moncton. Program feasibility must be demonstrated, and the organization capacity for the project and the program must be demonstrated in the application that's provided. There is reporting once again at the end of the year that's due in December. The largest category, so once again, as a quick refresher, we have cultural, immigration, and quality of life. They're all 10,000 and under, and only single year. The major multi-year grants and or for multiple years. So you could ask for a $20,000 grant for 1 year for a specific project, or a grant that would extend for multiple years, up to 3 years, that would basically cover off. A couple of the reasons we've done the major multi-year grants in the past, it gives organizations, more than basically the other streams offer for a larger chance of fund. Also helps maybe leveraging other sources of funding, other governmental agencies. Also gives organizations stability so that over the next 3 years, you've got a committed amount of money coming from the city of Moncton based on a successful application. One of the things we've changed in this year, which we basically, one of the reasons for having this presentation, is in order to apply for a major multi-year grant, you must have previously received funding for 3 of the last 5 years in other programs. So for instance, if you had been in the cultural area or in the quality of life or in immigration, you would have had to go through that program first, basically, if you're applying for the major multi-year. Now, the exception there is for groups whose 3-year cycle is finishing this year in major multi-year, and you're applying again. So if you currently have a 3-year grant in major multi-year now, you're fine. You can apply again because you obviously have had 3 years funding. But it's others who's what we're trying to do is ensure that there's sustainability of new groups. So first, please apply to the smaller funds, and then after you provide sustainability and reflect the success of providing the services, then after 3 years, you're eligible to apply for the major multi-year grants. Once again, because of the dollar value and the extent that they are more scrutinized, we use a scoring criteria aligned to the city's strategic pillars. Obviously, as with most of the other grants, we consider financial need and sustainability. So if the organization has a significant amount of other funding and looking like, we've sort of deemed in the scoring that the need isn't as high as much success. But factor, of course, again, and it's scored on in the scoring, is the applicant's strategic partnership. So who are your partners with? Who do you leverage your services with? Who do you combine with to get, it's called bigger bang for the buck. That's important in the application process and is laid out in the process. And of course, overall value to the city for the money that's being provided to each organization. What values, what outcomes are they providing to the city? And we'll talk about those outcomes in a few minutes when we relate to the other slides. So I'd like to go a little bit into the grant application form that will be online next week and sort of highlight some things. And keep in mind, this presentation is available for you to refer to and to look at as you're looking through and building the application. The little important factors that we talk about when you're completing that application. So basically, all the forms, information, resources on grants. Forms streamlined for consistency and make it easier for yourself. We do recommend that you print out a hard copy, a PDF copy first. Review it first, go through it first if you can. There is an opportunity to do a PDF copy of it to look at. Rather than go through, it's best to go through, review the requirements first before you go in, because one screen then leads to another screen. Then basically you're sometimes having forced entries, so you need to know the answers as you enter into the process. The application for major multi-year are more detailed than the other streams. They all start with the same spot and then basically lead you depending on what grant you're applying for. So to break down the grant application, the first section that you'll see when it's online is talk about the requirement documentation of past funding. Talks about the required. It's at that point that you basically choose the funding stream that you're applying for. So whether that's cultural, quality of life, immigration, or in fact a major multi-year grant. And basically then eligibility criteria, things such as no government, for profit, or religious affiliated groups as an example. There's several others in there, but those are good examples of the ones that are indicated in the both in the policy and on the application as things that would not would therefore make you ineligible to apply for the grant. Next, we talk about organizational information. So organizational contact information. So basically, what's the organization? What's the address? What is the board of directors? We've listed a lot of space, I think, and would look for 3 board of directors members if in fact you do have a board, and most organizations will. And other contact information, their phone number, email, that individual completing the application. Details, what sector are you in? So are you in the recreation side? Are you in social inclusion? Are you in culture if you're applying for a major multi-year existence? So how long have you existed for? Basically a little bit of background about the organization, your missions, visions, goals, partnerships. So what partnerships do you have? We're looking at partnerships here. For partnerships being, who do you affiliate with? Who do you work with? Not necessarily, we're not looking for who do you purchase product from or who do you obtain donations from. It's more, who do you work with to further the outcomes and the desire of the organization. So funding request details, this is where you lay out basically the purpose of the grant, the strategic plan, description of the project, and the impact in the community. There are several questions that address those. Final section of the section really want to bring in is basically the projected outcomes. We started it last year and we want to enhance it this year. Basically, we're looking for projected outcomes. So based on the money you're receiving or the operations that you're engaging in as a nonprofit charitable organization, what are the outcomes or expectations with the use of this funding? We're looking to at least get 3 out of 5 or 3 to 5 projected outcomes. There is an appendix that will be included to give you ideas of the things we're talking about. For those, some organizations, they'll come to mind very quickly. Others, please use the appendix. We've put some ideas down. Things like basically total number of clients obtaining safe and stable housing could be an example. Total education sessions and workshops being provided with this money. Total increase in visitors and participants compared to the previous year with the use of this money. Total number of children and youth who participate in the activity. Total number of participants benefiting from subsidized or reduced pricing. Total newcomers or international students attracted to Moncton if you're in the immigration side, and total number of programs and projects that support. Those are just examples. There's probably 20 or 30 in the appendices that talk to some samples. What the expectation is to provide these outcomes or expected outcomes on the application. And then in the final annual report at the end of the next year, we'll look to say, okay, you said you'd have 100 children that would be involved in the activity. You actually had 110 was in the annual report. That way it provides us with opportunity to feedback to council to the successes you had versus what you said you'd do. And it's really trying to evaluate, value for money, that the money the city has provided value based on the commitments for the organizations that we're speaking with. So final thing, one of the important parts, I'll talk about important dates in a second. The other final piece that's important to mention is in the application, there is a component at the very end of the application is to provide on the major multi-year, we must have a financial statement of the most recent year end that's been reviewed by a third party. So it could be an audit, could be a review engagement, compilation engagement, something that's been by the third party. Cultural, quality of life, and immigration. Basically looking for minimum internal statements, but even better if we have external statements. And then looking for financial information, current financial information, and any strategic plan information, things like that. So that's an important facet to help us evaluate, from a financial sustainability and need point of view, we can basically look at that. Some important dates on the slide I'm on now is basically the deadline to apply. So this year we've changed, that's one of the reasons for this presentation, we've changed the dating. The deadline to apply is September 29th, so it's Friday, September 29th. And so that's where we're looking for all streams, cultural, immigration, and quality of life, and major multi-year. September 29th is the last date. So we've given, basically from now, next week, basically through the summertime until the end of September. One of the reasons for doing that is to allow information that as organizations get through the year, it's closer to the next year. So the information they're providing is more valid. They've done their budgets properly. And I think there's more, better evaluation that we can get from it. We will be evaluating grant applications from October 1st to November 30th. For the major multi-year, we are establishing, and most organizations would have seen it, we're establishing a third-party committee that's made up of 4 people from the community, 2 counselors, and 3 internal people. So now there's external feedback, which is really important and something council is really looking forward to helping evaluate. Budget deliberations are November 5th to 7th, and we'll basically provide a number, a dollar value of how much is proposed. And then on December 2nd, after the evaluations, we'll provide to council, here's the list of the successful organizations that we're recommending be given money. And then there'll be based on deadline for the 2024 grant recipients, there's a final report on December 10th. So those are ones who are currently receiving grants. That's going to be required. We want to put that in for everybody's knowledge. And then basically we will, once we get communicated to council before Christmas, all successful organizations will basically be notified of their success, basically that they were successful in receiving a grant. And then you receive your money early in the new year or schedule through the year when you receive money. So at least you'll be aware of that money as you get into a new year.
There's
or
6
into the
people on here?
So basically, I'd like to sort of open it up to questions now. I've gone through it fairly quickly. Apologize for but certainly if we don't have your question answered please reach out to, basically moncton.ca/grants, or the info is grants@moncton.ca. So if this question don't have, or if there's something else basically just reach out to us. We all have access to the grants drive as this email in it, and we'll make sure it gets answered by the appropriate person. So I'm going to stop sharing and hopefully be able to see the screen that for those who have a question. And I think I did see someone from Hub City first up. So maybe for whoever it was from Hub City, please feel free to put your question.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for hosting this. Very appreciate all the new information. I have a question in terms of like how the streams work in relation to each other. So in the past, we've only received a cultural grant, but we're looking to apply for the first time for the major multi-year grant. Um, would organizations still be able to apply for major multi-year as kind of like an operational grant and then do specific project-based grants that would still be within the stream of something like cultural or immigration or quality of life? Or is it like if you're getting a major multi-year grant, those other like smaller grants are now like off the table for you?
So your second part is correct. It's
Okay,
if you're getting major multi-year, you can't apply for the other grants.
great. Thank you very much.
I think I saw Chris. Not sure what organization, Chris, but please fire away.
Yeah, thanks for holding this session. It's been very interesting. This will be the first time my organization will actually be applying for a grant. So most likely we'll be falling under the smaller grants based on what you said, if I'm correct, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I identified one of the grants, which is the quality of life, and that's the community grants. That will be most likely what we will be going for. So I don't know if you could shed a bit more light on that particular grant.
What the qualifications are for that grant?
Yes, for that grant, yes.
It's basically that's fairly wide open. It's things involved with recreation, social inclusion, sort of active living, and it's under
Okay.
an application for it's under $10,000, and it would then be it's a 1-year commitment. So each of those
Yeah.
grants, and typically, I'll be honest, typically those grants are usually, $2,000 to $3,000 each recipient. It's rare that it's up to the 10, only because we want to be able to provide as much funding as we can to as many organizations as possible with that money. There is a fixed pot. Can't tell you exactly what that total pot is right now. Sort of depends on what budget allows for. But it's certainly, that's sort of the general parameters, Chris.
Okay, so it's a continuation of my first question. I hope you don't mind. Um, I work with Alternative Residencies Alternatives, and we work with people dealing with mental health, and we also provide accommodation to these people, and we provide 24/7 care. So, would quality of life, the community grant, fall? Would what we do if we're looking for funding for programs under this particular sector or this field we're in, would that fall into that?
That would fall into that category. Yeah, that would make sense. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Don't know. Let me see if I can see. So I can't see a name. Gentleman with a Berkeley golf shirt on. Sorry. Oh, I think you might be muted.
Okay, now can you hear me?
Gotcha. Yes.
Okay, my system is backwards. Anyway, yeah, when we start the application for cultural grant, for instance, is there any timeline once you start the application? Some of these you have to complete the whole thing. Others you can go part way through, and if you don't have an answer, you can kind of pause and save and come back the next day or something. But you know which way that works?
I'm going to check
Once you
for you.
start
We
the
did
application.
in previous times. We did have it being saved, and I just want to confirm. And we'll send a message out to everybody just to that point. That's why I recommended probably print off the whole application first in the PDF
Yeah.
format and have it prepared to go. I think the answer is yes, you can save it, but I gotta check for you because we don't have user IDs and that, so that could be the issue. I just want to check for you to be sure, but we'll send an email to everybody.
Okay, thanks, Greg.
Okay, no problem. We've got 2 minutes. Any other questions? And if there are others after that you remember or you think about, just email us. We'll gladly be reaching out to you and respond as quick as possible. And I will follow up with that saved comment because we have had that before, and I just want to confirm with IT that the effectiveness of that. Okay. And if I don't see you and want to ask a question, just speak up for the next minute or so.
So I do have one question, sorry. So if you apply for the multi-year grant and you don't receive it, and you've received the other grants in previous years, are you still eligible to get one of the 1-year grants?
You have to apply. If you apply for the major multi-year, you can't apply for the other ones. It's the way the policy works now. Because to be honest, we had a lot of people applying for many, and sort of got to pick and, there's a lot of organizations there, so we've got to sort of pick and choose. Any other questions for the last minute? And then we'll gladly, as you said, this presentation will be online next week. And then we'll also, and any questions that come up, even as you're doing your applications, reach out to those in the organization and to the grants at CA at moncton.ca, and we will gladly help you out with things. And what I do ask, try to start the application early. Try not to wait till September 28th. Like we all love to do, if you could, and then at least we can help you out. And that way, if you have technical difficulty too, it's always easier. So, so with that, I know we're basically finished off for our time frame. There is a French version coming up, so I'll have to back out. Chris, if you want, drop me an email. I see your hand there. Drop me an email, and I'll gladly answer your question for you. Okay.
Thanks very much.
Thanks everybody for joining. Thanks very much. Pleasure.
Thank you.
And
Thank
hopefully it was
you.
helpful. And if you have other questions,
Thank you.
please. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.